Hey there, just a quick check-in from me before I head out to the gym for my first training session of the day. I've been looking over the tribe and all of the answers, the awesome answers that have been coming in from all of you. And some really, really powerful stuff surfacing already. Most of you have just completed your day 2 stuff and moving into the day 3 material, but already some really powerful stuff starting to arise, so that's brilliant. Obviously, along with that powerful stuff, there's also some challenges and some struggles and some concerns and all that kind of things. So I just wanted to spend like a minute or two. It's going to be more than a minute or two. I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you about kind of how to deal with some of those things and maybe why some of those things are in place. So I've got a little list here in front of me. So first thing, somebody or a few people have mentioned the repetition, how obviously, for example, exercise 2 was very similar in many respects to exercise 1. It's like going over the same ground. And what you'll find is that exercise 3 is going to go over the same ground again. Now that's by design, okay? So it's by design. What we're trying to do is build up a 360-degree picture of these challenges and these problems and the things that you're going to do with them, so that it's not just kind of one of those notebook exercises, one of those journal exercises that don't really go anywhere, that kind of is an interesting factoid that you write down somewhere and you do soddle with, right? So the aim here is to get you really, really in touch with and deeply understanding each of your answers. Now, what's interesting here is that you guys are all coaches, and I'm sure you know the importance of repetition. But isn't it weird that when you're on the receiving end of it, you just kind of want to go, well, yeah, I've done that bit, now let me get to the next bit, and I've done that bit, now let me get to the next bit, and I've done that bit, now let me get to the next bit, right? And we kind of had this tendency to want to rush and pace our way through the thing to kind of like get it over and done with and get it behind us. And that's not the aim with this program. Right? The aim of this program isn't say, well, there's another tick in the box and kind of, now move to the next thing. The aim of the program is actually to have you have understanding and clarity and awareness of these issues and these challenges and these struggles and these problems, so that you can actually finally address them. And if you think about it, every other time that you've sped over them and kind of just written it down as a checklist or some kind of thing like that, it's never really changed, right? So there's another aspect to this, and that's that the brain actually learns through a process called neuroassociation, right? Neuroassociation. It takes an idea that it already has, a belief, kind of a fundamental fact that it holds to be true. And then just like imagine if you were building a bridge across a river, right? Kind of you wouldn't like get all the component parts and just randomly drop pieces of bridge span in the middle of a river. You would bolt the first bars to the riverbank, and then you'd bolt the next bars to the first bars, and so on and so forth. Well, this process is the same, and it's a neuroassociative process which says, okay, here's a factoid or a piece of data or a new piece of information that you have actually, just come to terms with, and you bolted it onto your current reality. Now here's another piece that we need to bolt onto yesterday's information. Now here's another piece that we need to bolt onto the next, right? So this is actually kind of, like I said, a process called neuroassociation. If you don't neuroassociate, your brain will actually discard and even forget many of the things that you're learning. It will just go, oh, that was some interesting exercise I did once. And I always like to say to people that the 4 most dangerous words in existence are, I already know that. Right? And we have a tendency to think we already know that. And once we feel like we know something, we stop associating, we stop connecting the next piece of the bridge. So if we want to get all the way across the riverbank, we need to keep going back and back and back, right? And connecting the new information to the old information, right? So this is by design. So kind of, I get it. I understand that in many respects, it can be frustrating to kind of think, well, didn't I just do a bunch of that yesterday? Yes, you did. But you're not doing it the same way. And secondly, you're doing it for a different reason. Okay? Yesterday's reason was to find out one piece of information. Today is to find out something else. And tomorrow will be to find out something else still. And by finding out that and getting that 360-degree perspective around it, you'll neuroassociate and increase the likelihood that you actually use the bloody stuff rather than just keep it in a journal or a notebook, right? I'm not here to help you lay down kind of, fill 10 journals and that's just another interesting exercise you did once, right? We're actually here for the business of transformation. And I know you know that because you're a coach. And with your clients, I'm sure you're often pulling your hair out and saying, why the fuck won't they just do the piece of work that I've set them, and let's kind of focus on and dig into this information and really get it kind of locked in. Why do they want to keep moving forward, right? And just be aware that in your case, you're very likely at points to get frustrated, to get impatient, to get pissed off, to get upset, to get whatever, right? And think this isn't right, and I just want to get moving onto some other stuff. Tell me what to do, and I'll just get on with that, right? Fight that urge. Fight that urge. It's not easy, but fight that urge. So that's the first thing. That's the reason for the repetition. Time. There's been some questions about time, like kind of, should it take me so long? Some people have said they've taken 2.5, 3 hours to do an exercise. Now, look, of course, there is no upper time limit. You can spend as much time as you want, right, with any one of these exercises. Of course, you want to be careful that you're not just navel gazing and, spending ages and ages pondering the same material over and over and over and over again. Now, these exercises can be done in kind of 60 minutes or less, and even done to a high degree in 60 minutes or less. 60 to 90 minutes is kind of like an average amount. But look, understand this. There's a way to do this so that you get the fundamentals down quickly. Okay, and that's to imagine that you're in a conversation with another human being as you're answering this, or someone's literally asking you. Imagine you're a coach, so you're asking a client a question, and yes, you give them some space to answer, but they don't just sit there. A client's answer doesn't go like this. Well, I think the answer to that is, oh, hold on, no, let me take that back. Well, I think the answer might be, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Well, I think the answer, and you get my point, right? They don't keep editing themselves over and over and over and over again. What happens is that somebody, after being asked a question, normally blurts out some element of fact, some element of detail, like how are you feeling? This is pissing me off. This is upsetting me. This is stressing me out. This is whatever, right? Okay, and then we start to explore and lay down the further data from there. And I want you to kind of think about it the same way. When you see a question, and this is why JATFQ, just answer the fucking question, is so important, right? When you see a question, just answer the question that's there immediately with the first answer that comes to mind first, and then start to layer on top of it. Don't go into, I've always taught the people that work with me that you can't be both the journalist, the reporter, and the editor at the same time. It doesn't work, right? Imagine if every journalist out there started writing a piece and then they went, oh no, but I've got to edit it again, and start writing, I've got to edit it. And if you do the same thing with your answers, you're very unlikely to ever finish the piece or finish the piece with any depth. So put your best and kind of first answer down and then build from there. And so all of these exercises can be done pretty quickly. And again, I'm not telling you to rush. I'm not telling you to hurry. And likewise, if you actually feel, you know what, like I spent time on it yesterday, but I'm not happy with the answer, fully happy with the answers that I gave yesterday, and I want to revisit it today, we'll do that today instead of moving on to the next exercise. Right? Now, try not to get too caught up in that. But, from time to time, you might say, you know what, I want to revisit that exercise. And because even though it's not necessarily wrong, it doesn't feel complete. Just be aware of procrastinating now, and be aware of holding off, right? And also be aware of perfectionism, of course, right? Because there's a tendency to want to get to the perfect answer. And this program is not about perfection. It's about excellence. It's about surpassing and going beyond where you've been before. So what else have we got? Feelings. A few people have said, why such emphasis on feelings, and kind of trying to understand trying to check in with my feelings about how I feel about certain things is actually slowing down the process. Well, here's the thing, and here's why feelings are important. Because the part of your brain called the basal ganglia, which is the area of your brain that is responsible for all habit formation, really, and the brain doesn't think of it like habit. It thinks of automation or pushing things into the subconscious. In other words, things that are going to run on autopilot. Well, those things on autopilot that we generally tend to call habits are determined by the brain by the level of emotional significance and value from doing them. Okay, so your brain will say, actually, I choose this thing because it makes me feel a certain way, and that way may be positive, or it may be simply that it eradicates a negative, right? It helps me get rid of some kind of fear, or it helps me feel a certain level of positivity. And until you replace something with a higher value of emotion, with a higher obvious value to the brain will continuously revert back to previous feelings. And that's why this program is a feelings evoking program. So do try and, think about what your feelings are. You're allowed to get raw and you're allowed to get real, right? It's all relevant to this process. And in fact, it's better if you do. Don't hide from the feelings. At the same time, don't beat yourself up if you're unsure about how you feel about something. Sometimes you are just ambivalent. You go, I don't feel strongly about it either way. But be on the lookout for when you're bullshitting yourself and you're hiding from the truth. Somebody yesterday kind of gave an answer, for example, that they didn't really pay much attention to their appearance and how they look and all the rest of it. So it wasn't really a point for concern. And yet in the next exercise, they identified that how they appeared, what made them feel sad and kind of, like they were letting themselves down in some way. So just be aware of kind of, if you're ready to be honest with yourself about these things, it doesn't have to mean anything more than it actually means, right? You go, well, that's just how I feel about it. This program is designed to help you use those feelings as a catalyst for overwriting things in the basal ganglia. This is all neuroscience that we're working here. I'm dressing up all this stuff in fairly layman's terms so that, and obviously some of these exercises you may have seen before, but the way we're doing them is deliberately designed to evoke aspects of the prefrontal cortex, aspects of the amygdala, aspects of the basal ganglia, and so on and so forth, so that we actually genuinely and finally perhaps overwrite the old patterns and actually put in new patterns that the brain perceives as being more valuable than what was there before. Okay, so there's your feelings. Struggles. If you're having struggles, ask for help and ask early and ask frequently and ask as much as you need. But here's the big but. Ask specifically. I am struggling with X, right? And get specific with whatever X is. I'm struggling with answering this particular question because, all right? And if it's because you don't understand, or because it's evoking something in you, or because you can't see the wood for the trees kind of thing, or whatever it is, but ask. And again, as coaches, you know how important it is for your clients to actually step up and engage in the process of their own coaching, right? And so I'm inviting you to do exactly the same, because here's the thing. A lot of coaches don't want to be a bother. They don't want to, I don't want to be the one who's perpetually asking the questions. I don't want to be a pain in the ass. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be that person or whatever it is, right? Well, look, here's the thing. You have invested your time, effort, energy, and of course your money into this program. And it's actually what the program exists for, and it's what I am here for, right? If you don't ask the question, you may waste hours, days, weeks, even the entire month because of some piece of data, some piece of information, some light bulb or connection of the dots in your mind that isn't taking place. And so please, please, please ask early, right? If once you've had a bash at trying to answer it and figure it out yourself, if you go, I am genuinely perplexed by this, I'm stuck, I'm not really sure where to go with it, reach out and ask then and there. Right? It takes courage, I know, particularly if you see yourself as, if you want to call it that, strong or independent or whatever, right? But I'm going to ask you to use your strength and use your independence to actually step up and get the kind of help you need throughout this program, rather than kind of sitting there kind of suffering in silence, right? ESP. In today's exercises or missions, I share with you the concept of ESP, which is to be exact, specific, and precise. When you're going through each one of your exercises, check again that you are being exact, specific, and precise in your answers before you submit them, if you so to speak, right? And even if you're submitting them to yourself, like, look out for vagueness, look out for ambiguous, look out for anything that's open to interpretation. If you say, for example, I'm going to stop worrying so much about what other people think, right? Well, that's cool, but what does that actually mean? How do you know that that's actually being enacted upon, right? Because it's not measurable. It's not something that somebody else can directly necessarily see, right? It's fairly ambiguous. And when something is ambiguous, it's open to interpretation. It's open to a little bit of kind of, blurring the lines and nudging the deadlines and nudging the parameters around and all that kind of stuff, right? Versus if you were to say something much more specific, like I'm going to stop spending time trying to mind read people. I'm going to stop spending time trying to figure out what they might think of my stuff. I'm going to stop spending time, whatever, right? But can you see the difference? So, because once you are going into the ESP zone, the exact, specific, and precise areas of your answers, you get to be in that very, very special place where you can ask binary questions, yes or no, right? So it's difficult to say, like, have I really stopped worrying about it? Because you're kind of always thinking about things, right? So am I just thinking about it, or am I worrying about it? Versus, am I mind reading my marketplace right now? Yes or no? Am I trying to figure out what they want before kind of trying to figure out what it is that I'm trying to say? Yes or no? Right? And these create these binary answers. So in terms of your answers, try and be as exact, specific, and precise in them as you can. And of course, that may not all happen in one single mission, one single activity, and that's absolutely fine, right? We're here together for 30 days, and even at the end of 30 days, you might want to go all the way back through the whole material again and layer it on again and layer it on again. And in fact, this is the work of a lifetime to keep doing this. Okay, so don't beat yourself up and give yourself shit about the fact that you don't have the perfect answer. Remember, we're after excellence, not perfection. But we're looking all the time. We're looking at how exact can I be in my answer? Like how measurable is this? As opposed to, here's a vague concept, let me use that as a goal, right? I am going to start eating healthier is kind of meaningless, right? Because again, ambiguous, vague. You can interpret that any way you feel on any given day based upon your mood, the circumstances, the environment that you're in. Versus, I'm not going to drink alcohol or have kind of sugar or sugary beverages or confectionery or any of that kind of stuff for the next 30 days or until I weigh. You know, in my case, one of my specific things is I'm not consuming alcohol, eating cakes, biscuits, sweets, chocolate, any of that kind of stuff until I weigh exactly 100 kilos. So it's unambiguous, right? I'm sitting here thinking today, oh, should I, I could really do with a sugar in my cup of tea today. I'd really like to put a sugar. Should I put one? Are you 100 kilos yet? No. Okay, so the answer is no. Don't put a sugar in it. You're not 100 kilos. That's not the commitment you made. I'm hoping that makes sense, okay? So these were the first things that have come up, and these are patterns that have come up. Finally, I just want to say to you, if you do have any problems or challenges or struggles, ask early, ask often, but make sure that you tag me with, with the @sign @Dax, right? And then I will actually see that question. There's a lot of stuff going on in the group, and so it's kind of hard. I've tried to answer a lot of things. I'm reading everything. I'm answering as much as I possibly can, but there's a good chance, given that most people are posting at least twice per day, and there's 40 odd, nearly 50 of you, I think. There's no way I'm going to answer every single thing and comment on every single post every single day. It's just not going to happen, right? So if you do really need some help with something, please make sure that you tag me. Finally, keep showing up, right? Keep with the process. It's a simple process, but it's not an easy process. And it's going to elicit a lot of feelings. It's going to elicit at times frustration, at times fear, at times anger, and sometimes even directed at me, right? Why the hell is he keeping us here? Why can't we do that? Why aren't we setting goals yet? Why is he not telling me how to do this bit? All of this is coming. If it hasn't come yet, it's going to come, I absolutely promise. But I want you to remember the commitment that you've made. Stick with the program, stick with the process, the time that you've committed to doing this every day, stick with that, right? Keep showing up to the work, doing the work, asking early, kind of understanding that, again, this is a neuroassociative process that is actually been designed around a neuroscientific process as opposed to just a pop psychology. You may have actually seen a lot of these questions before. You may have even answered them all before. Okay, but the way I'm putting them together here is designed around a very, very, very specific purpose with your brain in mind. And I'm also hoping that as you go through this, particularly once you're on the receiving end of frustration and confusion and lack of clarity and all that, that it's going to help make you a better coach and actually help you to understand and see maybe where actually you could do with some of this with your clients. You could do with taking them back to ground zero. You could do with keeping them in the same kind of questions for a longer period of time. You could do with maybe kind of challenging them and actually guiding them into their discomfort, into their darkness, into their fears a bit more. Perhaps maybe rather than giving them the rah-rah, you can do this and all the rest of it, right? I'm not saying that's what you do, but I'm hoping that you don't just improve as a person, kind of in your personal life as a result of going through this program, but that you're seeing some parallels in your coaching and maybe even your sticking points in your coaching, right? Where actually maybe, you know, people aren't paying you as much as they could be paying you, or staying for as long as they could be staying, or why maybe, you know, you're finding it harder to market and get new clients than perhaps you should be, right? And all of this is going to become clearer, not only as you work through the material itself, but as you experience the feelings of being on the receiving end of coaching, and where your frustrations are, and perhaps where you tend to rush through things, and so people that you're coaching or trying to coach don't see the full value and importance of it. Okay, all of this is to come, and I'm going to be speaking to you quite a lot more over the coming days. But I just wanted to drop in, wanted to say hi, and wanted to just kind of, you know, applaud you for the steps that you're taking so far. But keep kind of inviting you to show up, ask, engage, and just answer the fucking question, because that is the magic ingredient of actually overcoming all of that overwhelm, all of that frustration, and any negative feelings that may surface. This has been me, Dax. I'll speak to you again really soon. Take care.